My name is Travis and I am 32 years old. I'm here to share my story about how my marriage ended. I had been married to Lauren, who was 5 years younger than I was. I loved her too much and let her live her life the way she wanted until she did something that was highly unacceptable. I was unwilling, but I had to make sure that she never made the same mistake twice. She did something unforgivable and it had to be punished. It was a difficult decision, but I knew that if I didn't do anything, she'd just keep on doing it. I knew that cheating was wrong in any relationship. My wife was lying and cheating, so I decided to teach her a lesson to make sure she suffered the consequences of her actions. I met Lauren 9 months ago at a party hosted by one of my friends. I was instantly smitten by her beauty and wanted to get to know her better. I asked my friend to introduce me to her so that I could start a conversation with her. My friend introduced us and left us to chat. She was pretty easygoing, and our conversation flowed really well. She told me that she enjoyed going to parties and living her life on her own terms. She was ready for any challenge that came her way. After talking to her, I liked her even more than before. She was not only beautiful but also very clear. I wanted to find out more about what she wanted in life, so I decided to meet her more often to get to know her better. We started meeting up regularly, and it made me realize that I couldn't stop thinking about her. She made me feel like no one ever had. I'd been warned by my friends about her wild nature and her tendency to change boyfriends, but I didn't pay much attention to that. I trusted my gut and knew she felt the same way. It had only been 6 months since I met Lauren, but I was sure she was the one I wanted to marry. I took her to a private island for a holiday. She was impressed by the elaborate preparations I'd made for her one evening. We were having drinks at sunset, and I popped the question when I felt that it was the perfect moment. She instantly agreed and said yes, gave me a hug and started crying, telling me that this was the best day of her life so far. We had a royal wedding, and we were the talk of the town for almost a month. Everyone was talking about our wedding. The media coverage of our wedding was huge, with news outlets and social media platforms full of stories about our fairy tale romance. People were really interested in the love story we shared, and it seemed like everyone wanted to be a part of our celebration. Even strangers would approach us to congratulate us and share their well wishes. We were overwhelmed with gratitude for all the love and support we received on our wedding day. Lauren and I decided to keep our stuff in 2 separate rooms. We would sleep together at night but have our own space during the day. We had only known each other for a short time before getting married, so we both agreed to live our lives the same way we did before we got married, until we could find someone to share our lives with. We knew it was important to maintain our individuality and personal interests, even within the confines of marriage. We believed in giving each other space and time to pursue our own hobbies and goals. This would help us to grow as individuals and as a couple. We didn't interfere with each other's schedules and didn't always keep in touch. I was mostly busy with my business, and adding one extra thing to my routine would be a hassle. I trusted that Lauren would take care of herself and let me know if she needed anything. The trust and independence in our relationship meant we could support each other's personal growth and maintain a healthy balance between our individual lives and our life together. It also created a sense of freedom and autonomy, fostering a deep sense of respect and admiration for one another. We understood that by prioritizing our own well-being, we were ultimately contributing to the strength and happiness of our marriage. As we were both contributing to the strength and happiness of our marriage, Lauren wanted to celebrate her marriage to me with her friends. I organized a cruise for 5 days with 5 of her best friends. I didn't feel the need to join them, as it would only make things awkward. I was happy to agree to anything my wife wished for, as long as I could afford it. All I cared about was her happiness. I believed that giving her the space to enjoy this special time with her friends would make the experience even more memorable. She was a memorable character, and I had no doubt she'd have a great time and make some lasting memories with her closest friends. Lauren carried on living the same way she did even after we got married. She went to parties, came home super drunk, and went to bed. I sat her down one evening and asked if there was something bothering her about behaving this way. She said it was all too new for her, and it would take her some time to adjust to this new life. She told me she wasn't born with a silver spoon like I was, so all this, it was a lot to take in for her. I tried to understand what she meant, and decided to give her some more time to adjust to her new role as a wealthy man's wife. It's been almost 3 months since we got married, and Lauren still didn't feel like she was ready to come around and share a room with me. She showered me with love and we had passionate nights together, but there was still something missing in our relationship. Despite the physical intimacy and affection we shared, there was a lingering emotional distance between us. I couldn't help but wonder if there were deeper issues at play causing Lauren to keep her guard up and maintain her separate space. I wanted her to trust me completely and make her feel as comfortable as possible, as this was her home and this is where she belonged. I was thinking about whether I should have a conversation with Lauren about my unhappiness and my concerns regarding our relationship. I decided to give it a week's time and then maybe sit with her and have a heart-to-heart. To be continued. I had a chat with Lauren about how we were feeling and whether we were on the same page. I decided that this would be the best approach to avoid hurting anyone. I came home early one day to grab a few papers for an upcoming meeting. I noticed that Lauren was not at home. She was probably out with her friends. I was about to grab my papers from my room and leave when I decided to check what Lauren's room looked like. Maybe I could find some clues there that would help me to understand. I started looking for either a diary or a journal that she kept. While I was shuffling through the papers, one of her lipsticks fell on the floor. I bent down to pick it up and noticed a paper under the dresser. It must be something important, so I tried to pull it out. It was an invitation to a private party. I opened it to look into more details about it. I could see that the party was in honor of Lauren and organized by a group of men. The bottom of the invitation grabbed my attention. It read, "To the most beautiful woman ever, who deserves the love of every man in the world." I looked at the address. It was a private villa owned by one of my business competitors. I decided to go and see what this party was all about. On my way, I called Lauren to check where she was. She told me she was having a sleepover at one of her friends' houses and would be coming home by. I had given Lauren complete freedom to do what she wanted, so I didn't think she'd lie to me. I just wanted to be sure she wasn't at the party. I had a feeling something was going on that I needed to find out. I got to the place and parked my car. I could see that there was no one at the gate, so I went inside. As I walked in, I could hear loud music. I heard some really upbeat music that was pretty loud. I could see a lot of cars parked along the path leading to the villa right at the entrance. I saw Lauren's car parked, so I knew she was definitely at the party and not at her friend's house like she said. I walked to the front door but decided against ringing the bell. I started walking along the wall to see if there was any wind or a window I could look through. I walked a little further and noticed one of the windows. I peered through the open blinds, trying to see without being seen. I could see a group of men drinking and laughing. The music was too loud for me to make out what they were laughing at. I was so interested in what was going on that I didn't even notice the obvious. Most of the men were missing a lot of clothing. Some were bare-chested, while a few were just in their underwear. They were all looking. I couldn't see what was going on below, but it was too low for me to look. I couldn't understand why Lauren was at such a party. I was trying to give up and ring the doorbell when I saw something rising from the ground. It was Lauren, standing right in the middle of all the men, with her 2 hands on her breasts and wearing only her panties. I was left numb. I couldn't feel anything. Just before I thought that this could be the worst thing I had seen, one of the men came over and kissed Lauren today. She looked at everyone and laughed as they started hooting. I was filled with rage and anger. I decided to barge in and take Lauren away. I started walking briskly towards the main door when I got an idea. I walked back to the window and started to make a note of everyone present at the party. There were 6 men and of course Lauren. I was both angry and frustrated at what I could have done if I took Lauren away. All these 6 men were my business competitors. I couldn't let them mock me because of Lauren. I decided to leave them to it and get on with what I was doing. I knew I had to think of something to embarrass all these men and teach Lauren a lesson. I walked out of the villa towards my car and drove like a madman, still thinking about everything I'd seen. I gave Lauren everything she'd asked for and more. I was great in bed, and we had a lot of wild nights and even days. I didn't understand what Lauren was missing that she had to go to such extremes. I decided to have some fun anyway. I didn't think it would be helpful to dwell on why Lauren did all of this. All I could think of right now was how to get back at her and those men who were having a wild time with my wife. My mind was consumed with anger and betrayal, fueling a burning desire for revenge. I needed to devise a plan to make them pay for their actions and restore my sense of justice. As the rage within me grew, I vowed to make sure they paid for messing with me. Lauren came home the next evening. Like she said, I was waiting for her at home to see how she would act after what she did last night. She seemed pretty calm and collected for someone who cheated on her husband with not just one but 6 men. I tried to play along and ask her how the sleepover was. She told me it was fun, and she did a lot of catching up with her friends. I waited for her to freshen up so that I could get my revenge. After Lauren came and sat beside me, I told her that I am planning to take I told Catherine, my new personal secretary, that she would be looking after me for the next 2 weeks. I called her into the living room to introduce Lauren. Lauren greeted her and said she was happy to help. I asked Lauren to get some rest, as I had a few things to discuss with Catherine. She said she was tired, which was understandable after having sex with 6 men. Catherine didn't seem too happy about me taking such a personal interest in her, but there was nothing she could do about it. I started walking with her in the opposite direction, putting my hand on her butt to make sure Lauren noticed. I spent about an hour with her, explaining what her role would be. She was hired to annoy Lauren and make her doubt my relationship with Catherine. I wanted Lauren to confess to her wild activities on her own. Catherine came into our bedroom the next morning to wake me up, so we wouldn't be late for our meeting. Lauren was surprised that Catherine had access to our bedroom as well. I quickly got ready and told Lauren I'd see her in 2 weeks. Catherine and I left home, and I'd be staying at a hotel for the next 2 weeks, keeping an eye on Lauren and her activities. I also had to find out detailed information on all the men at the party. I made sure to gather as much proof as possible to cover all my bases and use it at the right moment during my stay at the hotel. I meticulously documented any suspicious interactions or behavior from Lauren, as well as any potential connections she may have had with the men from the party. I also discreetly collected business and personal information of all the 6 men, as they could not just get away with goofing around with my wife. I hired a personal investigator to look into I also kept an eye on the men and got reports on their personal and professional relationships. Lauren was a special case, so I decided to spy on her myself. I wanted to see what she would do in these 2 weeks when I wasn't around. I was waiting for her to leave the house, as I knew she wouldn't be stupid enough to call any of her lovers to our home. She left at noon, so I followed her car to see who she would be meeting. She parked at a hotel and met Matt Ryan, who was my biggest competitor. They had lunch and were laughing and smiling. From what I could see, Ryan's hand was on Lauren's thigh from time to time. She didn't even try to push his hand away after lunch. Ryan took her to his car and drove her to his villa. I knew what they would be doing in the villa, so I didn't want to waste my time following them. My private investigator had sent me a few details about Matt Ryan. I was able to get Matt's fiance's contact details. I went to a phone booth and called her. I told her that Matt had been planning a surprise for her. I gave her the address and waited for her to show up. She arrived after 40 minutes and drove straight inside. I'd already bribed the security guards, so they let her in. The main door was unlocked because there was no reason for them to lock it. Matt's fiancée went inside, hoping for a surprise, and was in for a shock. She saw Matt with a woman she didn't recognize in a compromising position. She screamed at Matt and threw the engagement ring at Matt, followed her out of the villa, trying to convince her that she was mistaken. However, she was adamant that she had seen what she saw. She told him that she would not only be breaking the engagement, but also withdrawing all her investments in his business. I was sitting in my car, enjoying the scene in front of me. I told myself, 1 down, 5 more to go. I had already gathered information on all the other men, and collected proof of their infidelity to their wives. I had also made sure they were caught red-handed. I handed the evidence over, which led to most of them losing their investments or having to pay hefty alimony for cheating. I had one big surprise left for Lauren. I sent invites to all the men from Lauren to a party at a new venue so that she could cheer them all up in this difficult time. I also sent invites to Lauren from all the men, telling her that she was the only woman who understood them and never judged them. This party was I made sure the villa was ready for the party before it started. Everyone arrived on time. I made sure they left their phones at the entrance before they could enter the villa. This was part of my plan so that they were cut off from the outside world. Lauren walked in wearing a sexy red backless dress that I had given her. I was amused. I was amused by her shamelessness in wearing something I'd given her to enjoy with other men without a second thought. I'd installed cameras everywhere in the villa, including the bathroom, so I wouldn't miss a thing. The party started with music and drinks. They gradually started dancing and kissing each other as the party went on. I opened the link to the live stream of this party to all the companies. I had the live stream playing on all the TVs in my company and in all the other companies that were at the party. I took all their phones and put them next to me in the monitor room. As the party went on, their phones started ringing. Some were from their managers, and some were from their families and friends. They were calling to let them know that they were on a live stream and being filmed. I put everyone's phones on silent. I enjoyed the show with a bucket of popcorn in the 2 weeks that I had been following Lauren. I understood that she never loved me. She was only with me for the money and the privileges that she would receive as my wife. I should have known better not to fall for someone like her who was nothing but a gold digger. To be honest, I would not have had a problem with it because I understand that people get attracted to money. I was okay with that, but I wasn't okay with her trying to fool me by acting like a loyal wife. She wasn't just having an affair, she was having an affair with people I'd have to deal with every now and then. I could see the looks on their faces when they came to talk to me about a certain deal and make me feel inferior because deep down they knew they were having the best time of their lives. I wasn't okay with that with my wife. I knew I was doing the right thing by exposing not just Lauren but also sending a message to all those men that they made a really poor choice by messing with me. I collected the entire footage from the party and left. I left a message for Lauren and told her that I would be arriving tomorrow. The cameras were still recording them sleeping together in one bed naked and on top of each other. Some of the guys even left in the morning. Lauren was the last to go. She checked her phone and left quickly to get home. I gave her enough time to get home, freshen up, and get ready for my arrival. I let her know I was on my way by ringing the doorbell. I hugged Lauren when I saw her and then started talking to Catherine. I acted like Lauren wasn't there. I ignored her completely. Lauren stood there for a while, and when she saw that I wasn't going to respond, she stomped her foot and left. I could see that my revenge plan was working. It has been 2 days since I came back from my business trip, and I have been trying to avoid Lauren as much as possible. I knew that all her lovers were busy with court cases and defamation cases against them, and could not contact her anytime soon. Lauren was still unaware of the footage and the chaos it created. I'd blocked all of them from her contacts. As days went by, I made sure that Lauren felt ignored and unwelcome in her own house. Catherine was calling the shots regarding everything around the house. She was the one letting the cook know what to make for breakfast, and also what kind of diet I would be following. When Lauren tried to correct her, she would just smile and tell Lauren that I have now changed my preferences and am willing to chuck out old habits, and give her a look that said she was annoyed with me. Lauren came to me. Lauren was complaining that Catherine was taking over the house and interfering in things that she wasn't responsible for. I advised her to calm down and stop overreacting. Catherine was more organized and doing a better job overall. However, Lauren was still frustrated because she felt Catherine's involvement was unnecessary and intrusive. I suggested that she blame me for cheating on her so that I could play the Uno reverse on her. I told Lauren the next day that I wanted her to spend. I booked a club where she could take her friends for some fun. I knew she'd been feeling out of place at home recently. I'd be busy until late, so she could catch up with her friends and come home after entertaining herself. This would help lift her spirits. I still had someone tailoring and giving me reports of her whereabouts every hour. I wasn't going to trust her. I needed her out of the house. I had everything ready for a fun ride that she would be in for tonight. She had no idea that tonight would be a night she would never forget, as I had planned every detail meticulously. I was excited to see her reaction to the surprise I had in store. Lauren came home around midnight, drunk, as she walked into the living room. She saw me sitting on the couch with Catherine on my lap. She couldn't believe what was happening and walked towards us and screamed, "What the hell is this?" I looked at her, smiled, and asked her to join me. She looked at us, disgusted, and asked Catherine to get off my lap. As Catherine was about to get off, I told her to sit back. Lauren was fuming with anger. She said that she knew there was something going on between us right from the day Catherine walked in. She knew that I wasn't just her boss. I smiled at her audacity to blame me for cheating on her when she was doing exactly the same thing. I asked Catherine to leave us. I was alone in the home theater when Lauren walked behind me with great difficulty, making sure not to trip. She stood beside me and I switched on the TV. She started watching something round that was playing on it. She didn't understand what it was, but as she kept looking at the screen, she saw what I'd put up there. The color drained from her face when she realized that it was the footage from her night with all the men. She looked at me in disbelief. She didn't know what to say, so she just kept staring at it. The screen, and finally asked me where I got it from. I laughed at her question. I was amused that she didn't even try to defend herself. I replied very casually that I'd recorded it myself. Her eyes widened in shock as she processed my response. She stuttered, trying to find the right words to explain herself, but nothing came out. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence as the weight of her actions hung in the air. I could see the guilt and regret written all over her face. It was clear that she'd been caught red. She was at a loss for words, and looked like she was struggling to come to terms with being caught. I sat on the couch and started watching the footage with a lot of enthusiasm. She just looked at the screen and at me back and forth for a while, not sure if I was angry or amused by what was going on. I started commenting on what I saw on the screen. I told Lauren that I liked how she handled one of the guys. It was a skill I admired. I motioned for her to sit next to me so we could go over the footage together. She had no choice, so she sat down and started watching it with her head bowed in shame. She knew she messed up big time as the footage played. I couldn't help but notice the discomfort on Lauren's face. It was obvious that she regretted her actions and was aware of the consequences. I made her sit through 2 hours of footage and told her that it was entertaining. I was surprised to learn that she had such close friends who were so comfortable in their own skin around her. She didn't have anything to say in her defense. She started very meekly with an apology. She told me that she got carried away by all these men. She said they'd talked her into a challenge of spending a night with them. She said she couldn't let a few men win against her, and that was the reason she went to the party. I liked how quickly she made up this story. I nodded, letting her think that I was buying her story. I tried to play with her a little to see how good she was at making up stories. I told her that I understand she was being cornered by these men, but she could have used the identity of being my wife to get out of the situation. She said that she did not want to ruin my reputation, and hence did not mention who she was. I was impressed by her story-making skills. The ease with which she was lying was unbelievable. I acted as if I felt sorry for her, being the victim in all of this, just as she thought that it was over, and I bought into it. I made her walk to the dining table to get a glass of water. I made her sit on a chair and put the glass on a piece of paper. She picked up the glass and noticed the paper. It was the same invitation she'd hidden under the dresser. The glass fell from her hand and shattered. She knew in that instant that there was no point in making up stories because I knew everything she'd been doing. While she was on the ground crying, I kicked her out of the house. There was nothing else she could say. She couldn't defend herself because I'd made her admit to everything she'd done. After confronting her, I realized she was a cheater and I couldn't have her around. I gave her another chance, but she kept on begging me to take her back. She said she wasn't thinking straight and got carried away. They were all rich, and she couldn't say no to them. I knew forgiveness wasn't an option. It was a painful decision, but I knew it was necessary for my own well-being. I had to think about what I wanted to be and who I wanted to be. I decided that from now on I would only respect someone if they were worthy of being in my life. This was the biggest lesson I learned from Lauren's betrayal. In the week that followed, I had my lawyer draw up the divorce papers. I made sure that she would not get anything from me, given the chaos she had caused. I made sure that a few pictures and videos of her cheating were circulated in the media to name and shame her. I made sure that I destroyed any credibility that she had, so that it would be difficult for her to get a job anywhere. I had warned all the major companies against hiring her. I still had a private investigator tailing her. I also had a private investigator tailing her to keep an eye on what she was up to. I wanted to make sure she knew how difficult her life would be without me in the picture. I wanted her to regret cheating on me every day of her life. I made sure she didn't get a place to stay easily and was insulted everywhere she went, asking for a job she didn't agree to. I got a mutual divorce and demanded alimony. I couldn't help but laugh at her blatant demands for money and property. She even faked being pregnant to make sure she got at least child support and property under the child's name. I showed the judge all the pictures of her with so many men in all kinds of compromising positions. I told the judge that I was never that close to her, and that I didn't blindly agree to the child being mine. I asked for a DNA test to make sure that it was actually mine, as they took her for the test. They found out that she'd lied about the pregnancy. I sued her for defamation along with suing for the divorce. She pleaded to the judge. She said she had no money and no source of income to pay me. She should have thought about all of this before she decided to cheat on me. This was all the drama that had happened to me in the last 3 months since I got married. I'm writing all of this just to lessen the hurt and pain that I have been feeling. It was very difficult for me. I was determined to stay on this path of revenge and make sure to carry on with it until the end. There were times when I was so depressed that I didn't even want to do anything. Lauren was the first person who I thought would be different from all the other girls that I met in the past. She did not come off as a gold digger at first, but all she wanted was I now understand her reluctance from the beginning to share a room with me. She would not have been able to hide all her dirty actions if we were living in the same room. It was a painful realization, but I'm grateful that I discovered her true intentions before things got even more complicated. I could literally relate to the saying, "Love is blind" for me. It was both blind and untrustworthy. I know it is going to be a difficult walk for me starting here. She not only did my marriage end, but my reputation is also in tatters. As I walk past people, I can see the pity in their eyes, and some even have a mocking expression. I was fooled by a woman who was cheating right under my nose. It's disheartening to witness the judgment and scrutiny from those around me. The weight of betrayal is heavy, and it's challenging to navigate through the aftermath of such a devastating revelation. All this drama has impacted my judgment in such a way that I find myself questioning everything.